I'm really excited because we're going to explore compassionate approaches to entrepreneurship and leadership. So before we begin, I want to highlight that our upcoming 4-day Grow Challenge with Shankar and Shanae is starting in just 30 minutes after this ends. And this is something you can be sure will allow you to have an opportunity to apply everything that you have learned about the intersection of having a growth mindset, using mindfulness, and learning to grow yourself, learning to grow your business, learning to grow your presence and your influence. So go to YouGrow.Club or click my face or Shanae's or Shankar. It'll take you to the link underneath, which is where the landing page YouGrow.Club will take you to sign up. And again, it's today, so it's not too late to do that. All right, so on to our topic of leading with compassion. And thank you for everyone who shared. LinkedIn does not store the recordings. To frame this, we're going to look at the former LinkedIn CEO, Jeff Weiner. Now, if you're familiar with Jeff, raise your thumb or heart if you remember him before he went on to be executive chairman. Okay, so he really understood compassionate leadership, and he prioritized cultivating compassion in himself and his employees. And I want you to hear just from his own mouth the reason why having compassionate leadership, which I think is often misunderstood anyway, it really is about relating to teammates as full human beings and understanding and having concern for well-being of employees. But this man, Jeff, has done a lot to move and shake and scale and really grow LinkedIn. And so he's someone he's on the more interesting side of people to listen to when they're teaching you and you're learning from them. But he had a lot of influence to where LinkedIn grew from when he took them through the initial public offering in 2011. And that's no small feat, by the way, to go public. Then later it was acquired by Microsoft in 2016. Okay, so you have to position yourself for that, which means he's increasing revenue and user base by this point. That means introducing all these new features, understanding the platform's key use for professional networking and job searching and pouring that into everything you do. Well, he did it. And it went to $26.2 billion. So my question is always, $26.2 billion in 2016. What are these people, these renowned for in their leadership style? Just understanding it, even if it's not your cup of tea, can give us a holistic understanding of how to grow in business mindfully, because there's things that they're doing. So what is it that he did? He's been an advocate for creating a work culture that values empathy and understanding, which he believes are key to effective leadership and business success. Then, of course, we know all of these people always go beyond their corporate role and pretty actively involved in philanthropy and thought leadership. And if you follow him, you know that he has expressed such strong views on compassion in business and education that he's been involved in getting a lot of initiatives and speaking engagements on the topic. So I want you to listen to him himself, and then we'll go more into how do we do it?
So I think it comes back to this notion of coaching and how organizations that successfully scale are investing in their leadership and helping their leaders lead their teams and helping them coach their teams so that they can lead without them being in the room. And to the extent you can start to manage compassionately, you are reducing conflict. And every time there's a conflict, there's going to be churn. And the resolution of that conflict, the reconciliation of at least two parties that aren't on the same page, it takes a lot of time and a lot of cycles. And over time, if that conflict continues to build, if it's not resolved, it corrupts the foundation upon which people are building their relationship. And a huge part of scaling, and we've talked about this quite a bit, in my opinion, a huge part of successfully scaling, I'm talking about some of the most valuable companies in the world, is trust amongst the leaders and trust amongst the employees of that organization who've worked together over time, that have each other's backs, that have developed a sense of shorthand with one another. They can, to some extent, predict how someone's going to respond to certain situations. And it is beyond a competitive advantage when you've got that kind of trust, when you have that kind of shorthand, and compassion helps develop that. Compassion helps reinforce the fact that we're all on the same team, that we're all in this trying to realize the same mission, the same vision, manifest and execute against the same strategy. So that's where I think it can be a game changer.
So Jeff Weiner, when he talks about strengthening his compassion muscles and his emotional intelligence to then model for the employees. So how did he do that? Of course, he credits his mindfulness practice to that. And when you really think about it, if mindful is being present in the moment, having this quality of awareness, and you are implementing into your life every day, multiple times a day, so that you can make better judgment and decisions, then it makes sense. It makes sense that when you are practicing all of this, you are strengthening those compassion muscles, that you're gaining active listening skills because you're focused on something, like when you were doing meditation, if you are just doing mindful breathing where you're concentrating on the sensation of the air flowing through your esophagus down to your lungs and back up again, and how every breath is nourishing. You're doing all of these things. You are active listening, asking thoughtful questions, considering diverse perspectives when you're problem solving. And as he said, this all leads to high trust relationships. And this isn't going to happen, after 30 days of doing mindfulness, meditation, and practice, that I'm going to all of a sudden just change overnight. No, this is the days become the weeks become the months become the years, because it's when you're doing that you're developing high trust relationships, and you are keeping your employees, or just the people that you work with and see, your clients, vendors, all of these people, where even in turbulent times, you have built up a resilient growth mindset. And that's what helps. He credits, or his mindfulness practice is what he credits as strengthening that muscle. And that's what allows you to get the space to boost creativity and innovation and all of these kinds of things. So how can we cultivate similar compassion capacities in ourselves? Well, I've already said it. Mindfulness through daily meditation, breath work, and yoga. I don't have anything fancy or an acronym or any shortcut. when you take time, even if it's 60 to 90 seconds to reset yourself, all of these things are what will allow you to cultivate the capacity to lead compassionately. Because if you can't have compassion with yourself, you cannot have compassion with others. So you have to learn to build the present moment focus, and that will help reduce your reactivity to stress and help us to relate to challenges with wisdom, but not just any kind of wisdom, the inner wisdom. And so this is going to help you when you have these entrepreneurial struggles, even not just burnout, but also isolation, and having to explain to family or friends yet again why you need to do X, Y, or Z, or not explaining and still doing with the stress that comes from that. Dealing with all of those things with mindfulness, and that takes time to develop because you can't rush your growth or your healing or any of those kinds of things. Mindfulness is what helps us to become the best version of ourselves. And I truly, truly, from the bottom of my heart, believe you grow your business when you grow yourself and you grow your mindset, which is another reason why I strongly encourage you, if you are a business owner, you should go to YouGrow.Club so that you can grow yourself, because it's not just about the numbers, it's who you become on the way to those numbers. And channeling everything that you know about mindfulness, which is non-judging when you don't want to click the post button, which is not taking everything as in a way that's non-judging when you get criticism. If you can apply all of the things that you know, you'll be successful not just in the challenge, but in every endeavor that you take on, because you are the best version of yourself. And guess what? Customers equally benefit from that. They benefit from having conscious leaders, entrepreneurs that are really highly driven and motivated. So it's your consistent mindfulness that's going to reshape your habit over time. And that's what bleeds out into everything that Jeff Weiner was talking about. Now, compassion in action, that is something where you have to practice in the moment, like the mindful breathing and all of that. But I'm going to play just another clip from Weiner and then go into maybe some exercises that we can do as well as visualization.
At the end of the day, I think one of the most important drivers of long-term value within an organization is the speed and quality of its decision-making. And you'll look back on companies that have created outsized value, and they're going to be able to count on 1, 2 hands the number of decisions that change the trajectory of that company. The challenge is that that's retrospectively that they can identify which decisions those were. When you cultivate trust, when you cultivate compassionate management, you put yourself and your team in a position where you can be making high quality decisions faster. When you're not being compassionate, you're constantly thinking about why somebody has the intention or the motivation that they do, why they disagree with you, where they're coming from, what they're trying to accomplish at your expense. And you start to multiply that through an organization of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and you can do the math. I mean, it becomes prohibitively expensive in terms of the cycles that could otherwise be spent trying to fight against a competitor or trying to make a more informed decision or a better decision or revisited decision or learn and grow. So I think it just builds a very strong foundation regardless. Reed mentioned another really important point that's worth calling out, which is this idea that compassion is a soft skill, or it's touchy-feely, or it's an eye roller, this new age concept. The strongest people I know are the most compassionate. True unconditional compassion requires almost superhuman strength and self-confidence and a sense of who you are, and not allowing other people to get you to question that, and not falling prey to vulnerabilities or insecurities and those triggers, but rising above it and putting yourself in the other person's shoes. I'll give you another example of where it requires real strength. And one of the most common questions I get is, if you're managing compassionately, how do you ever let anyone go? That's not a compassionate thing to do. It turns out when someone's struggling in their role, the least compassionate thing you can do is have them stay in the role. And for those of you that have ever worked at a company or been in business and you've seen someone struggle, it's actually a really difficult thing to watch, because they lose their self-confidence, they lose their sense of self, and they start to become a shadow of who they used to be. And that energy builds on itself. And they are taking that energy to their team. They become less effective. You become less effective by virtue of letting that person remain in that role, and they're taking that energy home to their families. And so by virtue of trying to turn the other way and allow that to persist, because you don't want to make a hard decision, you make it worse, and you increase that person's suffering. So in that particular instance, the most compassionate thing you can do, you could try to help them to learn the skills they need and provide the coaching they need to be effective in their role. But to the extent that's not possible, you want to transition them out as gracefully and constructively and compassionately as possible. And for anyone that thinks that's a touchy-feely thing or a soft skill, try it sometime, because it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do as a manager.
I'm reminded of a time when Shankar and I spent days and days and days thinking about a team member, whether or not we should keep them around or not. And there just became this point where we had to think about it and say, wait a minute. If we're thinking about this, tossing and turning and stressing at night, trying to decide if this person should stay or go, and they're clearly not liking their position anymore, or whatever the reason it was that this person was, we were seeing very clearly not a good fit, not the right person, not the right seat. That was a time when we had to realize that they are too. And this is not merciful, and this is not compassionate, and this is not in any way, shape, fashion, or form going to help us or going to help the company if we keep this person on the team. And in that moment, it was the very next day. I think we had just left the sauna, probably, right, Shankar? And we came out and we thought, you know what? This person needs to go. And then we, very next day, let that person go. And it was one of the most freeing things that I think we had done, because our turnover is so low. But we kept this person out of the intention to be compassionate. And now we see this person is actually doing everything that they actually wanted to do. And it is not related to our business at all. Because when I had a one-on-one or some kind of catch-up and we're reviewing their work and what I remember asking the question, it might have actually been during a company chat. Shankar, you can jump in and help me. Do you see where we're going with Shanks? And are you on board with this vision? And they actually literally said no. I don't see myself doing that, and I don't care about the medical field at all or the healthcare space. I was shocked. How do you allow yourself to go on for over a year at this point of doing something that's going in a direction that you completely do not want to go? But it was clear this person was not going to let us go, so we had to let them go. And now all they ever talk about is something completely unrelated to what we do. And I think that was just one expression of compassion. Shankar, do you have anything to add on that story? That just what Jeff ended with made me think about that, and I wanted to share with everyone.
I mean, yeah, he makes a good point that being compassionate as a leader specifically is definitely nothing that should be considered soft compassion, and acting on it when you know as a leader is best for both parties, but one party doesn't see it yet. Maybe it's best for many people, because as leaders, sometimes we are in positions where we have impact on people's futures. And that's literally why we are leaders, is because sometimes we know better. Sometimes we have a certain foresight, and as good leaders, we act based on what we believe in. And that's not easy. It's very often very hard. But when you act, you will be rewarded. Not immediately, it's often deferred gratification for yourself and for the other person. But again, that's what it means to be a leader. And the other thought I had was, for me, compassion really consists of being able to see someone else's perspective, and when you position yourself in that perspective, also blend out the things you know. So how would that person see the situation without my knowledge? And that, of course, requires an amazing amount of self-awareness. And if you think about it, you can really not be in anyone's position and perspective if you have not at least temporarily been in that position or exposed yourself to it. And that is why I believe it's so important as leaders and as humans to walk our path without taking shortcuts, without cheating the system, because you can really never teach something that you haven't gone through. And if you think about it, that's a little bit of this problem that we see with so many experts and coaches and consultants nowadays, also on this platform, who tell us, I can compassionately guide you through something, and they have never been in that place, right? And that's why I can make the connection now to our challenge that is starting in 35 minutes, is because Shanae teaches the bulk of it, but she does that with an enormous amount of understanding of where people are coming from, because she's been there herself. And that is the true power of why she is such a brilliant coach and teacher. So if anyone wants to experience what it took compassionately to get where Shanae is with her influence on LinkedIn, then all you have to do right now is join us in our challenge. You go to YouGrow.Club, or you click one of our faces and you sign up, and I look forward to spending another hour with you. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you, Shankar. I think that is so important to do if you are really trying to make an impact and grow. Please go to YouGrow.Club and experience it yourself. There is no cost, and it is 4 days. And now we're going to go into a few exercises to experience some mindfulness, and I'll give you some affirmations as well. So close your eyes. take 5 deep belly breaths. Focus fully on your inhales and your exhales. Notice if your mind wanders. Gently return focus to your breath. Now, with loving kindness, visualize someone you care for. Send them compassion and well wishes through your intention. Feel this heart connection. Who can you send compassion to? Now, let's do some perspective taking and think about a disagreement you had with someone recently. And reflect on the underlying needs, maybe the insecurities that are fueling their actions, and generate empathy. Send them compassion. Now repeat after me. I compassionately accept myself just as I am. Progress flows from patience with myself and others. Each moment offers lessons to grow my capacity for compassion. I breathe deeply to respond thoughtfully. I meet every challenge with mindfulness. May all beings awaken to wholeness. Thank you so much. You can open your eyes and come back to this present moment. And we will see you at YouGrow.Club and see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. Central Time to continue analyzing billionaires who really embrace mindfulness. Thank you again for being here. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye.